Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Game Over Ottawa. I'm your host, Maude, and unfortunately, it was a night of suffering for the Senators and their fans tonight. Joining me to break it down here is Brad Timmins. How are you doing tonight, Brad?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I was doing pretty good until watching that game, I have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people felt that way tonight. The Sens put on a absolute stinker on home ice against the Los Angeles Kings, and it was a game that just wasn't even close from the get-go. But before we really get into the analysis tonight, just going to thank our sponsor, Sports Interaction. Think you know what way it's going to go? Make your bet with Sports Interaction. Whether it's World Cup, hockey, football, or basketball, Sports Interaction has you covered. Bet pre-game, live in play, or on one of our many prop bets. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Join now and see all that sports betting has to offer. Want to bet? Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. 19 plus, please play responsibly. And now, I hope that not too many people bet on the Sens tonight because it was not even close at any point, really. How are you feeling about their performance tonight? Like, what do you think went wrong? It feels kind of like everything went wrong from the get-go, but what stuck out to you?
Yeah, I think it'd be easier to list the things that didn't go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they got off to just a terrible start, right? 2-0 in just over 2 minutes of play. That's pretty bad. Talbot, he's been great recently. Tonight definitely wasn't his night, though. I think some of them there was nothing he could do on, but he let in some soft ones for sure. Just every time the puck was in the Senators' end, I was back to, feeling a little nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Tonight, that's been kind of going away a little bit in the last few games, but tonight it was right back to that where the puck was kind of bouncing everywhere and you were just waiting for the opposition to collect it and throw it at the net.
Yeah, I have to say I was a little bit surprised that Cam Talbot got the start tonight, and I don't necessarily have a problem with it, because he has been good lately, but just the fact that Forsberg was so great against San Jose, especially in the third period when they had that crazy sequence on the penalty kill, I expected the coach to stick with Forsberg at least for the next game.
Yeah, I was expecting Talbot tonight. I think they're trying to kind of stick with one goalie as kind of the main starter rather than flop back and forth a bunch. And he played well through most of last week, right? Forsberg got the start on Saturday because of the back to back and played well as well. But I think, Talbot has kind of earned the starter's net in the past few weeks more than Forsberg has. So I had no problem going with them, but I think they maybe kept him in a little bit too long tonight.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that he has earned trust from the coaches and sort of a longer run of starts. But I do wonder if tonight maybe that will change things a little bit. I'm thinking that it might be. I mean, maybe they want to show confidence in their guy and go back to Talbot next game. But the way it went tonight, I think it might be Forsberg next game. Like you say that you think he was left in a little bit too late. At what point do you think you would have pulled him?
I'm not sure if I would have pulled him. I might have pulled him as a mercy pull after the third goal.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have pulled him for the third goal because that was the one where they threaded the pass right through Sanderson's legs, and there's nothing that Talbot could do on that one.
Mm-hmm.
But three quick goals like that, maybe give him the mercy pull. The fourth goal was a weak one. I probably would have pulled him after that if I hadn't pulled him after the third one, kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like, oh god, it was so many goals in that first period that I'm kind of struggling to remember how all of them even happened. The one that really stuck out in my mind was that line change, that failed line change where the fourth line was coming onto the ice, and we had numbers coming back. Like we had all five Sens players were back, and the Kings only had like three guys into the zone at that point, and yet we still managed to leave one guy wide open. Like, just that. I don't know if it's laziness or like not enough of a commitment to defense, but just moments like that are so frustrating to see, and they kind of make me like uh not put so much on the goalies here on this result. Like I definitely think it was more of a mercy pull when they did decide to pull Talbot after that fourth goal, because oh boy, it was just soft in
Difficult.
our own zone all day, huh? All night.
Yeah, 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 definitely.
Yeah, and it's so backbreaking too. After we do get that power play goal from Batherson, pretty good timing, like early in the game, 5 minutes in when you're down 2-0. I really
Yeah.
thought that was going to give the Sens some life, but just it didn't last very long.
No, they look honestly, they look good. Shout out to DJ Smith on that timeout. I think it was
Hmm.
necessary and use a timeout 2 minutes and 15 seconds into the game, but then they come back after that and they have some pretty good shifts, draw the penalty and get the power play goal. But yeah, then then it just ends up in the back of the net at the other end a few minutes later, and it's back to scrambling.
Yeah, I've said before, especially when the Sens were on that really long losing streak, I've said that they just seem to get like really discouraged very quickly when things don't go their way. So I think, like you said, the use of the timeout by DJ after those first two goals, even though it seems like an absolute calamity to be needing to use a timeout 2 minutes into the game, which it was, it did seem to help. It kind of
Mhm.
sparked the team right after that, but that little that few minutes sequence like leading up to that power play goal by the Sens, that seemed to be basically all it was. And then as soon as the third goal went in for the Kings, like the Sens just kind of flatlined at that point. So to
Yeah,
me, it kind of seems like bad habits creeping in once again.
yeah, that's one way to put it. I find their structure kind of collapses when bounces start going the other way.
Mm-hmm.
That was the big thing I found during the earlier losing streak, and the past 2 weeks they've been a bit more composed. When things start to fall apart, they're a bit calmer and able to collect the puck and kind of get things back on track. And tonight that just wasn't happening.
Yeah, and even going into the second period, like down 4-1, obviously that's horrible, but I wasn't totally tuned out of the game yet because
Mhm.
we've seen a lot of comebacks in the NHL this year. Like especially, any game that I'm watching when a team goes down, the local broadcasters will always say like, "Oh, there's been so many comebacks this year, so don't tune away." But because if you get a
How many
quick,
how many goals were the Kings down against Seattle?
oh yeah, yeah, as soon as we went down 4-1, I tweeted, I was like, "Can we get another 9-8 game, please? Like just for some
Yeah,
entertainment value." But this game was the exact opposite of that in terms of any hope of a comeback. Like I feel like when you're down early after the first period, you have to get something going pretty quickly in the second period to swing things
Mhm.
back your way. And that second period was just absolutely dead from Ottawa. Like
Yeah.
nothing. I don't
They
remember
were
a single scoring chance in the second period.
Ottawa. I found in the second period, Ottawa was doing a decent job of controlling the play, but they weren't really able to generate anything off of it. Right? They would get the puck into the Kings end. They'd try to get something up. The Kings would break it up. The Kings wouldn't get anything going at all, but they kept it kind of quiet enough, and they kept the pace of the game down in the second period, which was the right way to play it for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they really did keep it quiet. They highlighted on the broadcast, even on replays. This is how uneventful that second period was, is that they spent time on replays showing how the Kings were playing the trap and analyzing the 1-3-1. So that the fact that they actually had to focus on that on the broadcast because nothing else was happening and it was working really well, like credit to them for sure.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and I was kind of worried coming into this game, especially I don't know if it's just my weird way of thinking, but just because we played the Kings like basically a week ago and managed to beat them, I felt like coming into this game I was like, "Oh, they just played us. It's fresh in their memory. They know like what they did wrong basically, and then they're going to figure out how to beat us." And it just seemed like they came in with a perfect game plan, just executed it, to perfection right from puck drop.
Yeah, the idea that you spend more time on tape after a loss than you do after a win.
Mhm. Yeah, like I'm sure that teams are always bringing up the tape of their previous game versus an opponent, but I feel like just because it was so recent that we played the Kings, like it's just I had a feeling that it wasn't going to go too well tonight. That they were really going to step up their game.
Yeah,
Um,
what they had to do differently was more front of mind.
yeah, exactly. Now I want to point out a comment in the chat here. Marco, he's got a question. What is Pinto not doing that he was doing early in the season, I guess, that was leading to his success? That's another topic I want to bring up, not just about Pinto, but about the second line in general, which has been a bit of a common talking point lately. But what are your thoughts on Shane Pinto's play lately? We'll start there.
Um, I think he was probably actually the best out of the three on the second line tonight.
Mm-hmm.
He made a couple plays. He wasn't. I mean, the second line wasn't really able to get anything going at all. Um, Pinto was probably the one where I saw the most effort from and the most able to get something to happen, even briefly. Um, in general, I think he's a little out of his depth right now. I think he's losing Norris so early in the season has hurt Pinto a little bit in the long run. He's having to play up on the second line this entire time. Um, I think I think he's capable of it. I think he's just lacking the experience to really bring it that high up the lineup night in, night out yet.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's just the tougher matchups that are really hurting Pinto right now. Not necessarily that he's doing like really bad with tougher matchups, but it definitely has an effect. Like I remember as well at the beginning of the season when we actually had that brief winning streak and it kind of coincided with Pinto's goal scoring streak. Like that is mostly when he was playing with Maude and Joseph. I guess because they had put Brassard into Norris's spot at first when he got injured. So, which, to be
Yeah, for a
fair,
little bit.
I'm glad that they're not doing that anymore. But also,
Yeah.
I just think that the way that line was playing with Mott, Pinto, and Joseph, like I think that just kind of suited Pinto's game better. They were really strong on the forecheck, causing a lot of turnovers, and I felt like that just helped out Pinto. It worked out really well for him. Whereas I don't think DeBrincat and Batherson have really developed any chemistry with Pinto at all.
Um, Not consistent. I mean, they've got some games where they do really well, but it's really hit and miss. Like there's no consistency. Like the top line, they're bringing it game in, game out. I mean, they played pretty well tonight. They weren't able to get a goal. They weren't able to get on the score sheet at 5-on-5, but I think they still played a fairly good game tonight. And they do that pretty much every night, right? Their off night is still pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
The second line, they seem to be feast or famine. They either have a really good night or it's just terrible.
Yeah, and I did see a tweet during the game. It was a screen cap, I think, from the TSN broadcast. It was a graphic showing Alex DeBrincat 1 goal in his last 9 games, Shane Pinto 1 goal in his last 12, and then Drake Batherson 1 goal in his last 10 games. It's looking rough for them. Like you said, I don't think they play poorly every game, but it's just that the results aren't there. And I feel like
Yeah.
without with Norris not coming back anytime soon, like most likely, I don't really know what other options they can try really. Like, is there anything you'd like to see? Maybe a bit of a shakeup in the top six.
I hate the idea of breaking up that top line. I
Yeah.
think, I mean, I think Brassard can slip into the top six to kind of do spot duty here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, maybe you need to move Brassard up to the second line for a game or two to let Pinto have some space on the third line. I don't really know if that's going to help in the long term, though.
Yeah.
Um, make Pinto look good for a game or two, but I don't know that I'll help in the long term.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not sure there's much you can do until Norris is back, to be honest. I mean, as long as the top line is clicking the way it does, I mean, they're clicking, and when they're on their game and when they're actually getting the bounces and making the most of their bounces, they can win the game.
Yeah, like you said, it's so tough to break up that first line. Like I hate seeing, sort of a one line team that's struggling with depth, but I can't really think of much else they can do other than maybe I've suggested switching maybe DeBrincat and Giroux because I feel like Giroux has just been great all season, even before he went up to that top line. And but I don't
Yeah, that
know.
might be what
Yeah,
could get to Brinkett going too.
it just feels like they're really stuck in terms of options there. Just that one injury has really messed things up. Like
Yeah,
I wouldn't have minded seeing like Ridley Greig called up for a few games just to give him a shot, but even if they were able to do that because he is injured, it's not like that would be much of a long-term solution. You wouldn't really want to be relying on a rookie in that position so much. It's just sort of like I would like to see it tried, but and they can't even
yeah,
do it, so it's a moot point anyway.
yeah.
But yeah, speaking of DeBrincat, like, what do you think about his game lately in terms of scoring, like the lack of scoring? Like, I feel like some games he gets a ton of chances that obviously aren't really going in, but then other games I feel like he was really quiet. Like tonight, I wasn't seeing too much from him. What did you think?
I think tonight I wasn't seeing too much from him either. I think he's gripping the stick a little too tight, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, early on in the season, right, he wasn't getting the goals, but he was getting tons of chances. He was generating these high quality scoring chances and being absolutely robbed. A bad bounce, a stick in the way, a crazy a highlight reel save kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't buy a goal. Um, Tonight on that first power play, he had a couple chances and he was fanning on them. He was putting the puck right into, players that were in the lane that were right in front of him. Um, when he was trying to make plays in the offensive zone, he was bobbling the puck a little bit more tonight. I mentioned earlier Talbot wasn't Talbot's night. It wasn't DeBrincat's night tonight either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling like at this point he just definitely isn't much of a play driver. Like he's not really going to be the guy to lead a line exactly. And I know as a goal scorer you don't always expect that. He's expected to be kind of the guy that finishes off plays, but I feel like with sort of a lack of a playmaking element on that second line right now, it's just a little bit painfully obvious that it's just not there for him right now. Like I don't know, it's disappointing after that exciting offseason trade and bringing in a big name player with a big salary, but I feel it might be speaking too soon early in the season, but I feel like I'm sort of getting to the point with him where I'm not too concerned about whether or not he gets re-signed long term. I don't know if that's a hot take, but I don't know. What do you think?
Um, I'd still like to see him re-signed at this point for
Mm-hmm.
sure. The 9 million and change qualifying offer is looking a little less appetizing than it did over the summer and through the start of the season though.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is he still putting up a ton of assists? I haven't
Yeah,
looked in the past few days.
I think it's basically the assists that are keeping his stats looking respectable, especially. But the thing is, they're coming a lot on the power play with because we got him on the first unit there. But
Yeah.
5-on-5 is just really lacking.
Yeah, I mean, and even with the assists, he was brought in kind of billed as a goal scorer, and we're just not seeing that. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we saw the potential. We've been seeing the potential for most of the season, but they're just not going in for him.
Yeah.
Reminds me a little bit of the old Bobby Ryan line about getting the ketchup out of the bottle.
Mm-hmm. I was
It still
actually.
it still kind of feels that way with DeBrincat that you know once they start, they're gonna really go,
Mm-hmm.
but they haven't started yet.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about Bobby Ryan in comparison to Alex DeBrincat. When we brought Bobby Ryan in, it was very similar hype, and then even
Yeah,
though
that's right.
he had a lot of ups and downs throughout his Senators career, like there was times where he did live up to the hype, but it
Mhm.
was he was never really like You know, there was the phrase coming in hot. He didn't exactly come in hot, to be honest. And I feel
No,
like
and he never really was the goal scorer in Ottawa that people were expecting when he came in. For a while there, he kind of transformed into more of a playmaker
mhm,
and had some good stretches as more of a playmaker with some scoring, but he was never, you're right, he was never the goal scorer that we were all expecting from that.
yeah, and then I have to worry with my anxiety brain that that's gonna kind of happen to Alex DeBrincat again, like in a new environment with different line mates. You know, the dynamic is different because obviously Bobby Ryan was playing with Getzlaff and Perry. That's a whole ton of playmaking on that line, and then DeBrincat was playing with Patrick Kane, and that was kind of the main talking point all summer was how's he gonna do away from Patrick Kane. And the whole time I thought, well, he's still a really good player regardless, and like we have guys who can set him up, but right now I don't really think he's playing with the guys who can set him up, which is the tough part.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in an ideal world, I kind of like the line that they had him on, to start the season playing with Giroux. But once again, we come back to that Norris injury.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I would still ideally like to see him resigned, especially if he does start to get the goals going in.
Hmm.
But I just feel like at this point in the season, when we're not a winning team, it's like maybe you just sell him off to get what you can. Although
Yeah.
just because of the whole RFA situation, when that brings me back to Mark Stone back in the day when he was RFA with 1 year left until UFA, and then he just takes that 1 year contract, right? Since the team isn't doing so well, I do also worry about that as a possibility with DeBrincat.
Yeah.
And then maybe it would just be wiser to move him maybe at the deadline this year. But then of course I keep going back and forth on this. It's then if he's not scoring that much, he might have significantly less value at the deadline too. And then maybe you should just try to keep him and rebuild his game. Not that
Yeah.
his game is totally broken, but we had high expectations, so
Yeah. But then you come back to the 9 million qualifying offer.
exactly. I
Wow.
I know.
Those RFA rights.
Yeah, sometimes with like it's usually with much cheaper RFAs, but sometimes teams will not qualify a guy and then just negotiate something under the qualifying offer. But I feel like that will never happen with the top end salary guys, right? Because why wouldn't they sign the qualifying offer?
Yeah.
Uh, tough, tough times here right now in Ottawa too, and it sucks because we were also optimistic after the last few games. Like it was a 4-1-0 record in the last five. Things were
Yep.
actually kind of looking up a bit. What was your optimism like before this game? Like how were you feeling before all the letdown, and how is it kind of recontextualized now after the results of this game?
Um, to be honest, it hasn't changed that much after
Mm-hmm.
this game. I wasn't letting it creep in too much. Um, I made the comment after, I don't remember if it was after Friday or Saturday, that I made the comment, okay, they don't quite have me fully back on board in terms of, I didn't say it, but say it this way, but they didn't quite have me fully back on board in terms of, you know, having hopes for the season yet. Let's see them get to 500 first.
Mm-hmm.
But they definitely had my attention.
Yeah. I just worry that
So
I worry that this will be a result that kind of kills a lot of fans' attention. It's not necessarily that one game hinges on like for the whole season, but it's just seeing a stinker like that. I just feel really deflated after this game.
yeah, it was kind of a stinker against New York
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the
at
first
home
one there.
too. So, if they keep going 2-3, 2 out of 3,
Mm-hmm.
that ends them up at 97 points.
Yeah.
So, as much as it would have been nice to get a 3 game streak going and, get closer to 500 and claw back some of that space, if they can keep this up and keep getting 4 out of every 6 points kind of thing, we don't need, a 4 or 5, 10 game winning streak for them to get back into the picture.
Mm-hmm. That is a very fair point. If you just sort of win those small little stretches, where you're just slightly above 500 in small stretches, then it builds up over time. Yeah, it's not like it's not like we need 10 game win streak right now. And to be honest, I think, I mean, even if that would happen, it would still be we'd still be in tough to get into the playoffs at this point. But
Yeah.
at this point, I'm definitely not expecting playoffs. I just want 500. You know, like I would see that as a pretty good improvement at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be nice to see them get back up there.
Hmm. I think that would be encouraging for a lot of fans just to see positive play for the rest of the season. And tonight we just weren't seeing it, so it's a bit of a downer. And a really tough opponent in Dallas coming up next too. Uh, I don't really know what to expect for that. The Sens have been better on the road lately after a pretty rough start to the season on the road. I think they were winless in the first few road games, but it's
Yeah,
better
they were.
now, so maybe it'll be okay in that game. But I don't know. It's a very tough opponent coming up next, so it
Yeah.
sucks that we couldn't beat the Kings again, considering we were able to once before.
Well, and, they played well against Dallas at the start of the season too, right?
That is true. Did we beat Dallas?
So
We did, didn't we?
yeah,
I don't know. I always confuse it with I think we played Minnesota right after, and they
yeah, it
were
was Minnesota where the losing streak started. Was
yeah.
against
It
Minnesota.
was yeah Dallas the last win of that winning streak, and then Minnesota the start of the losing streak right after. And I keep forgetting which was which, but that is correct. And there's another thing I wanted to bring up that we haven't mentioned yet is that you are the creator of Natural Stat Trick. Uh, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I hadn't actually seen much of the website before, but I was looking at it tonight to follow sort of the advanced stats of tonight's game, like, and they come up live throughout the game. I
Mhm.
thought it was a really cool site, and I just kind of I want to know about like how the site got started and how it works and everything.
It got started because I wanted to answer the question of what kind of impact Patrick Weirkosh had on the team,
Oh,
apart from the gravitational pull of Eric Carlson.
oh my God.
Because when you play the same position as Eric Carlson, he makes everybody on the team look so much better
Mm-hmm.
that when you're playing the second line behind him, everybody else looks so much worse playing with
Right.
you
Mm-hmm.
because he pulls them up so much.
So does that mean you were a bit of a Patrick Weirkoch believer then? You think he looked better than people were thinking, or because Carlson was making him look worse? You know?
Yeah, I was a believer at the time for sure.
Hmm. I definitely was not expecting to hear a Patrick Weirkoch reference on the show tonight, or at all in the year 2022. So that's a nice little throwback there.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to know, like, you don't have to go into like super detail or anything, but in terms of just like how the site works, like how you get all these stats and manage to have it for like every game too. Like I think that's really cool. Like there's so much detail on the website. It's really awesome.
Right. So everything I use on the website, the only source of data is the NHL website and the NHL
Hmm.
game reports.
Okay.
So they're updating pretty close to live. So I'm able to get the information from them and you know running through some calculations. Some of them like Corsi's simple addition.
Hmm.
Um, some of the other stuff like expected goals is a little bit more complex, but then I get the data, the raw information from the NHL reports and transform it as necessary.
That's really cool that you can take the data that's available and come up with stats that you can't get on the NHL website. Like you take what they have and turn it into something new and more detail that you wouldn't be able to get over there. I think that's really awesome. And you brought up expected goals. I kind of want to ask you about this. This is sort of a stat that I've seen a lot more recently getting referenced, but how exactly does expected goals get calculated?
All right, so expected goals is typically a mine definitely is it uses machine learning,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is kind of best explained if you're not familiar with the term. It's kind of like a simplistic artificial intelligence. It's not really intelligent, but it is kind of along that path. Um, it You feed a bunch of information. You have to kind of you have to train it. So when you create it, you feed it a whole bunch of information. Several years worth of NHL shooting information has gone into
Mm.
mine.
Hmm.
You pick the different things, and generally there's some experimentation to play around with it to try and get the best results. And you pick the different pieces of information that are used by it. And a very simple expected goals model would be, okay, if the shot comes from this location on the ice, how often is it a goal?
Okay.
Right. So that's a very simplistic one. And shot location still is the biggest piece
Hmm.
of it, but it will take a lot more information than that. Like, it will look at the location, it looks at the type of shot, if it's a wrist shot or a slap shot. Um, it looks at determines if it's a rush shot or if there was a rebound. Um, I'm trying to remember what all I put into it at this
Yeah,
point. It's
yeah.
been
I'm sure it's
weird.
a crazy amount of
Um,
things.
yeah, so it takes a lot more pieces of information and kind of puts them together and basically comes up with if it looks like this, if all of these pieces of information look like this, how likely is it to be a goal? How often does that turn into a goal
Hmm.
in that situation?
Yeah, and one thing that I did notice when I was looking after the first period is that the Kings' total expected goals as a team was 0.86, uh,
Mhm.
but they did score 4 goals. What, like, is that just a sign of the shots? Like, does that imply to you that the goalie should have had those shots, or that it was the defense, letting up chances that they shouldn't, or like what kind of results in a discrepancy like that?
Um, the first thing really is that, like, even a high expected goal chance, unless it's an empty net,
Mm,
unless it's an empty net, like a single shot, you take the same shot over and over again, even the best chance of scoring, you're only really looking at, one goal on every four shots or one goal on every three shots, even for like just the absolute best chance you can get. And like I said, unless it's an empty net. So it's just there's a certain amount of variance in it, right? They don't necessarily come evenly,
mm-hmm.
right? You can get, goals on your first couple, three shots, and it's 3-0, and the expected goals are, point 0.4 or something like that. But as the game goes up, right, think just even save percentage, right? A goalie can end with a save percentage over point 0.9 when they let in 33 goals on 30 shots. But if they let all three goals in a row, it doesn't kind of balance out, right? And that's the way it goes. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it comes in clusters. Tonight, watching the game and watching it, and that's one of the big things with analytics is, if you really want to analyze the game, you need to look at the numbers, but you also need to be watching the game.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Um, it was a case of, the goalie should have had some of those,
Yeah.
right? Like, um, one thing I will say about public expected goals models like mine, we don't have anything for, the goalie being screened
Mm. Mm-hmm.
or anything like that. It kind of balances out in the long run.
Yeah.
But in short runs, in short time frames, like a single period, you can get some numbers that don't match up to the actual goals that were scored.
Yeah, I do think it makes sense though from watching the period, because it's not like the Sens. I really don't think the Sens played that bad in the first period. Like, I thought they were worse in the second period. Really, it's just that those few chances and those small mistakes, those little things that end up being big mistakes. You know,
it really shouldn't have been 4-1.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, shouldn't have been 4-1. Unfortunately, we had the 5-2 final tonight. That's where we're gonna have to wrap it up tonight. Thank you so much for joining me, Brad.
No, thank you for having me.
Anything last minute you want to plug, or?
You mentioned Natural Stat Trick. I also write for Silver 7 Sens, so you can check out my work, my more Ottawa specific work there.
Awesome. Yeah, be sure to check out Natural Stat Trick and Silver 7 Sens, everyone. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to SDPN. Share it around if you enjoyed. And that will be all for tonight. The Sens' next game Thursday will be brought to you by Charlie for the post game. Have a good night, everyone.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.